Okay.
Guten Tag. Namaste.
Buongiorno. Hey.
Oh my gosh. If people are
Mm,
watching this on YouTube, they can see your gorgeous earrings, which is really fun because there's four giant black feathers and
giant.
giant, and they're hanging from a beautiful silver, looks a bit like a dream catcher. And they're
Mm.
gorge.
It really does look like a dream catcher. I'm
Mm,
surprised you're saying that they don't
that's
have
mm-mm.
dream catchers in Nepal.
Well, I mean, my understanding of a dream catcher is that that's a Native American um, it's the right word, practice, symbol,
Thing. Mm,
doodad.
mm.
And that's obviously not something that I'm surprised that you know what that is. So maybe that's not where it's from.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, people have dream catchers, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh God, they're hideous. And I don't know the idea behind them. I
Yeah.
just find them aesthetically displeasing. So I'm sure
Here's
there's
two. Put them on your ears.
yeah, I'm sure there's more to it than just they look pretty.
Yeah.
And I don't even know whether they're meant to catch your bad dreams or your good dreams, or
Mm,
whether you intentionally, I know nothing about them.
got
But
it.
when you sent me these,
Yeah.
which I literally love, my first thought was they're dream catchers. And I felt very happy about it because the story I attached to it as I sat there that particular day, which is whatever day it was, I don't remember now, a couple of days ago,
Mm.
um, to plan da 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 dramatic music, plan out nail biting experience is how I felt. The next, whatever, till 2006, I think I went. So let's say the next 3 years ish. I
26,
was,
but yeah.
oh yeah, that as well. Like
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
add some extra
We're
decades
good.
onto that. Yeah, thanks for time checking
No
this
worries.
into
We're
the
good.
right.
You keep
um,
going.
and I was like feeling nervous and all that. And then when I received these, I just felt supported and really happy, and I felt really
Hmm.
loved
So
by
that's the other part of the
you.
story is that found those in Kathmandu. We were walking around the city, and I had heard that there was like a cooperative that was created to support women. And like some of the blogs and books that I'd read said, get into a taxi and have the taxi take you to this cooperative because it's really hard to find. And I
Mm,
kept thinking, oh, that's something I will do, right?
mm,
Never got in a taxi, and we were just wandering around the city, and I saw, like, I was just walking by this doorway and I saw those earrings, and I was like, Jesus, like Mia would love these earrings. Like these were made for her. And my husband's like, that is so funny. I'm like, she has these black feather earrings that are like gigantic. These are like even bigger than that. I have to buy them. And so I go in there, and I'm like, I want these earrings. And she's like, we have a whole other showroom. It's behind the building and up the stairs. So I was like, let's go look at all of that to see what other black feathery earrings they might have. Anyways, went up there. And as I'm walking down, I see a sign. That's the cooperative.
wow.
So it was like
Wow.
just, you know, I think the universe guided me there, right? Like, first of
Yes.
all, you said you wanted to go. So here you are. You don't even realize you're in their store. And these earrings, like I didn't buy anything else
Oh,
there. It was just those.
oh,
I had to
Ali,
have
I
them.
love them. I love them.
So that's the fun.
I love the whole story,
Hmm.
and
So do I.
yeah, I love them.
Okay.
So you've just been
Yeah.
on this incredible trip,
Yeah.
and you took a big
Oh
intake of
no,
breath there.
I did take a big breath.
You were like,
I'm listening. I think it's because it was a really big trip.
yeah, yeah, huge trip.
Mm.
And you experienced, were in the
Right.
experience of exploring, playing with a breakdown, a breakthrough in
Yeah.
trust?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So part of what my breakthrough that I'm really trying to generate in my life recently, it's been
Mm,
months now, I've been really working on this, is a breakthrough in trust. And it kept coming up in my personal life. Like it was coming up a lot in my marriage with my husband. It was coming up with my kids, especially our daughter. And I just kept like, bouncing around outside of trust, looking in and being like, wouldn't it be neat if I could have that? Like, what a freeing and peaceful experience of life I could have. And so finally, I was with my coach and she was like, so you want to generate a breakthrough there? And I was like, that sounds hard. And so that's what I've taken on. And I don't even know what it means. Like, how do you it's like, how do you, it doesn't matter. So I don't know how to generate a breakthrough in trust other than to practice trust. And so when you're like practicing trust, what the fuck does that mean?
mm,
But I don't know. But that's part of the problem is that I don't know. And so how I've been practicing is inside my relationships with my clients, in interactions with others, I've just really been practicing like I'll trust that they can, I'll trust them to be able to handle things. I'll trust them to be able to ask me for support or to let me know if I've stepped over line or whatever it is. I've just been really like, because I think what I'm noticing inside of that is that because I'm such a people pleaser, I'm super vigilant to make sure everything's okay. And what that does is it has me not trusting anybody, including myself. So my husband and I, it's our 25th anniversary. We decide we're going to go to Nepal and we're going to hike. It's the Annapurna circuit, but it's behind. So it's monsoon season. We don't do any research. We just buy tickets, right? And then we're like, oh shit, it's like raining really bad there. So now what are we going to do? How do you hike in the pouring down rain? If you can do it, I don't really want to hike in monsoon. So there's a rain shadow in, so you can go like behind Annapurna into a different valley. So that's what we do. And it's a really good opportunity to practice trust because I don't know where I am. I don't know how to get things done. I like if I need help, I don't know how to do that either. I don't know our guide. Like the first exercise in trust is your guide comes to your your hotel, and you have to get permits to do this trek. And so the guide that we had already talked to um, comes to the hotel and says, welcome to Nepal. Please, we have money. We bring US dollars, hand over a large sum of US dollars in cash and our passports. And he says, namaste, I will take your passports and your money and I will go um, get your permits for you. And so that's your first exercise in trust because it's real hard to leave a country if you don't have a passport. So it's just like,
mm-hmm.
I really hope he comes back. I'm going to trust Mr. Hari to not steal our
Yeah,
passports.
yeah.
And it's actually really it, that moment where you turn it over, it's actually really freeing because like whatever is going to happen is going to happen, and I don't have to worry about it anymore. If he's going to screw us over, he's going to screw us over, and we'll figure that out when it happens. Like if he doesn't show up later, like then we'll know. But to sit and worry or like demand that we go with, or any of the other ways that I could ensure that
Mm,
our passports don't end up somewhere other than in our hands. That's exhausting, to be
mm.
honest. And so, go ahead.
Well, it sounds like something happened the moment you passed that over.
Yeah,
You then said, "Oh, then it was really freeing."
it is.
In my head, you've kind of crossed over a bridge or gone through some
Yeah,
magical doorway or something
yeah. And that
in the
is how it
action of
felt.
handing.
Like there was
Mm,
some concern before it happened. I mean, we knew that was the deal. Like we had already like said, yes, we would like your services. We'd already sent them a down payment. We knew this was the system. When you get there, this dude's going to show up and da da. And the whole time I was just like, I really think we should go with him. I think it's foolish. Like, write all the stories in my head of like what kind of a dummy would just give a stranger her passport. This is just insane.
Mm,
And then when I did it, here's the thing that happened before that. Maybe this is, I thank you for saying that. When I met him, I just trusted him.
mm,
Like, I chose to trust him, and I trusted myself, my instinct, my read of him. I was like,
mm,
oh, this man will not steal our passports. It was like
mm,
a knowing. And then I trusted that. So that's interesting too. Like, starting to read
mm.
people and being like, do I think it's safe to give it to this guy? And I really did.
And also reading yourself,
Yeah, yeah.
because you said you had that experience or thought. I don't know whether it was a thought or a physical sensation of trusting him, and then trusting yourself
Yeah.
that you could depend on your intuition around this person.
That, and then to add on, I also trust myself that if he steals our passports and leaves, never comes
Mm,
back, I can handle that too.
mm,
Like, we'll figure that out. We're not the first people to have our passports stolen in the history of the universe. So I'm sure
mm.
there's a system. We just got to figure out what it is. So it was just like,
Yeah,
if he screws us over, we'll figure it out. And if he doesn't screw us over, that would be great.
yeah. So more, tell us more
Yeah.
about, because I mean, did that cure you, that
Mm-mm.
experience? And you
Mm.
were like, ta-da, trust is now mine. It's now fully available. I'm cured of all non-trustingness.
No, it's not like that's the beauty of like, I don't need to fix anything. So this has been really fun. So then it was, so then you get out onto the trekking part of it where even to get to the trekking part of it is a bit of a hassle from American standards, right? So you've got to go to a bus station and you've got to like get tickets and then you got to get to your microbus and then you got to manage yourself inside of this group of 4 times 3, 12, 16, 17 people inside a minivan, right? They're real tiny in Nepal. They can really shove a lot of people into a minivan. And my husband is 6'6", which is like 3 meters. Oh no, you're a foot person. Brits do feet, right? Or do you do meters?
Well, both. I mean, I think
Okay.
technically we're meant to do meters, but
Okay. So he's
feet, yeah.
he's 2 meters, not 3 meters. That would be real tall. He's 2 meters.
To fold him over, get him in,
So
sit on the roof.
yes. So you're trusting your driver. The roads are terrible. The driving is what's the right word? Like, it feels chaotic and very dangerous to an American where like you go in, everybody drives on the one side. So that's the first thing. Like, that's not happening in Nepal. It's just kind of like, well, we kind of stay left, but like a lot of us are not on the left side. Like, we're doing what we need to do to get places. I didn't see a single traffic signal sign of any sort. So the whole thing feels like chaotic and dangerous and just like being in this tiny micro bus with my 17 new Nepali friends and right and it's like
And your giant
nowhere.
husband.
My giant husband who's like literally like folded in like an accordion into a seat and just trusting that like we can do it. There's no air conditioning. It's hotter in Hades. It's very humid. I have no idea what the system is. I don't know if we're going to stop to go to the bathroom. I don't know if we're ever going to eat again. Like, I don't know any of it.
Mm,
And just trusting that not only can I handle it, but it'll be fine. Like, I'm not the only one. Someone's going to have to go to the bathroom. Like, I'm not the. So just kind of like letting go of, I feel like trust has been a process of like letting go of the ruminating and the like future casting and the future tripping and planning ahead. It was just like, I can't because I don't know how anything works here.
mm.
So it's just like,
Yeah, and not being in control.
at all.
So I'm gonna say this and we'll come back to it because you're still in Nepal in the microvan at the moment, but
Mm.
I'm really curious about how that relates then to
Yeah.
coming back to where you do know how it works, but that's for
Yeah.
a few
Yeah, we can wrap that up.
down. Yeah, yeah.
Yep. So you've got the van, which is 7 hours-ish, which stops and not sure why we stop, like just learning how to just trust that like and then you get to the place where there's no way for the van to keep going, so then you get out there and then you get into a Jeep and now you got a new driver and a new trail that is even less passable by vehicle than the 7 hours of like hideous sort of kind of road that we were on. So it's just like like you're on the sides of cliffs. There's water that you're like, oh, I don't think we should drive across that. That seems really deep. And then if we get like floated, then we go off the side, or there's, just a lot of things. Again, as an American who lives in a very flat place, felt really risky
Mm,
and just trusting like if this is how I die.
mm,
Again, there's like nothing I can do about any of it. So it's just like such
mm,
a like, okay, it's almost like an acceptance. And that's where I'm really trying to find like, is there a distinction between trust and acceptance? And if so, what is it? And I don't know how to answer that question right now.
mm. I'm curious about whether in the moment when you were
Mm.
in the minivan and then when it became even more perilous, apparently,
Beautiful word.
and uncertain, the road was worse, you know, the path even less clear.
Yeah.
What was happening in your head? Were you like, were you thinking about trust? Were you talking yourself down out of a tree? What was happening in your
Yeah.
mind?
I'm not sure. I know in the microvan, I was talking myself out of a tree, but that because I'm so claustrophobic, being in a place where I couldn't, like, they have like the child lock on the sliding door for the van is on. So you can't open the door. And then watching people try to open the door and they can't open it was like exacerbating my, like, oh my God, I can't get out of here. Just noticing that in myself. And it's funny, like, knowing I can't get out of the van usually used to send me into a panic. And yet, um, for some reason, maybe it was practicing trust, maybe I have better coping, I don't know. But I was able to be like, you know what? Like, focus on yourself, look out the window, use your breathing. Everybody else seems to be fine. Like, look around you. Everybody's like, so for that part, the claustrophobia part, I was able to really just like manage myself. And
Mm,
but once we were in the Jeep, it's funny, the closer we would get to these like, oh, we almost just died there. Like the more, I don't know, funny isn't the right word, but like the more I just like embraced the danger of
peculiar,
it.
like funny peculiar, not funny ha ha.
Like, no, it was funny. Like, what the fuck are we doing here? How are we in this Jeep right now on a thing that really isn't a road at all with this guy who's like on his cell phone talking and like we're bouncing around. Like it was funny. Like if this is
Mm,
how we die, it's hilarious because like there's no reason for us to be doing any of this. And
mm,
so it's almost like I was able to enjoy it.
mm,
Enjoy, embrace the danger, enjoy the ridiculousness of the being tossed around inside this vehicle for 6 more hours. Like it hurt, it was uncomfortable, and yet it was okay. Like I had to
mm.
brace for the whole time, right? Like I was tired by the time we got to the place that evening. I was like, "Ooh, like that's been a long ass day," and I was a little sore. My hip was kind of like fucked up, and you know. But
Mm.
there was it was like embrace is the right word. Like at some point, my brain kicked over into like we're gonna embrace this experience, and I would look at my husband and we would giggle because it would be like, oh, we almost just like geek. And like, look at that. And then
Mm.
we'd look at each other like, oh, this isn't going to be good. And then the driver would somehow get through it. And we would just be like, it's incredulous that that he has the skill to drive this path. If you'd seen it, like you would get it. And the other thing, just as like an engineer, I'm like, I don't know where Mahindra, like their headquarters is, but I want to send them a card and be like, your trucks are amazing. We don't need rovers to like go on the moon and go on Mars. We need Mahindra trucks because these things unstoppable. They
Wow.
he could like drive over the sides of like big boulders and through deep ass like gooey mud and through like deep puddles and waterfall. Like it was unbelievable. I wanted to like record a commercial for those guys
Wow.
because now I want one because I could just get anywhere. It would never matter. I could drive all the way from North America to South America if I had a Mahindra.
Sounds amazing.
It was really amazing and
It sounds
scary.
incredible. Yeah. And like being, I mean, obviously not, but like being inside a game of some sort with, big rocks and goo and mud and
Yeah.
perilous cliffs and
Yes.
danger and water and this is impossible. And yet, through his skill.
He just did it. And
Mm,
very nonchalantly, like very humbly. Like
mm,
sometimes I would clap when we would get through a really difficult part. I'd be like, "You did so good," and he'd just be like, "What is her deal?" Right? Like that's his life. That's what he does.
yeah. Yeah.
Why is she so excited? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the transportation part. So already exercising, and then it was just constant. So now you're on a trail, you're walking, you're hurting, you're carrying your heavy pack. You don't know how far, you don't know how steep, you don't know what you're going to see, and just constantly trust, 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 trust. There were scary bridges that you had to go across. You're like, I hope this doesn't collapse, right? Or I hope I don't slip and lose my step because, like, I should really be tied into something on right here. Like, this isn't safe to just be
Mm.
scurrying across. Or I hope these rocks don't give way.
I
Or,
love that you scurried.
oh, there was a lot of scurrying. There was a lot of me like, "Ee," and then whew, you get across the thing. What I can do. So
Oh, that's so
it was just
funny.
over and over, and then you get to the guest house, you have no control. You get to your room, it's like a card, it's like a plywood box, and
Mm,
you have what you have. Like there is a bed, a structure of some sort that was always a bed off the ground with some kind of a foam pad on it. So there's your bed.
mm,
And if it's not comfortable, like you just trust that it doesn't fucking matter. You're going to
yeah.
sleep because you're exhausted. And you have to because you have to
It
get rest.
sounds like it was a continuous process of
Yeah.
being in different, being in unknown, being in the unfamiliar.
Hmm.
And I'm kind of thinking about that thing about, us living in our comfort zones,
Yeah.
which can also be called our zone of
Familiar.
familiarity. It's what we're
Yes.
used to. And it sounds like the experience was you continuously being outside of
Yeah.
that zone of what's familiar to you
Right.
again and again, minute after minute after minute after
And
minute.
really, like, that's like the training wheels way of experiencing trust, right? Because at the end of the day, if you can't know how things are going to go and you're in an unfamiliar place and you're doing things you've never done before, great place to start. Those are baby steps, right? Like, you can exercise trust there because you really don't have any other option. You really are
Mm,
relying on your guide to know
mm,
where to go. Like, you're out in the middle of the mountains. Like, I don't, if
mm.
Hari had gotten lost, I would have just followed him being lost, you know? Like if
Yeah.
he had gone down into, yeah. So it wasn't high stakes and it wasn't terribly difficult. So when you get on that bridge and you're like, I'm going to trust that this bridge is going to hold my weight.
Just to reiterate, because there is no other option.
Right. Right. You can't really plan ahead. You can't really future trip. I mean, I can. I'm really good at it, but it's it's almost like it's an easy place to just be like, oh, I'm just going to show up and trust Hari to know where to go. I'm going to trust these. Hmm.
So, I mean, was there the option, or did it not occur to you to just say, actually, I'm a no to that bridge, and I'm turning around and we're going back? Would that didn't?
I guess. So there was a moment when you go over the pass. So that's a long, long day. Some of our treks were 5 hours. Some of our days trekking were 5 hours. Some of our days were 8. And the
Mm.
day we go over the pass, we knew would be about a 12-hour day. In fact, it's such a long day that we get up at 3, eat breakfast, and then we're on the path at 4 in the dark. You start before the sun comes up. And you're already at like 4,200 meters. So you're already at a very uncomfortable elevation. Like I have been feeling the effects of the elevation. Interestingly, my eyes, I would get bags under my eye. I don't know how to explain. I almost should have taken a picture. Like I would wake up and be like, did somebody punch me in my eyes last night? They were so swollen. Everything else was fine. My hands, my joints, everything else was normal. But my eyes, my face would be like, boop. So that was a
Interesting.
weird thing.
Mm.
A low grade headache. Most of the time, I'm not hungry. I don't feel good. You're just like a low level of like, this is getting harder.
Mm.
So there's a pass. So you go up and over and then down the other side. That's part of the trek. And then when you go down the other side, then you keep going for days down into a different valley to get to your Mahindra magic Jeep. So
Mm.
there were multiple moments where we're going up to the peak, which is 5,300 meters. We gotta go about 1,000-meter climb, and we knew it would take us 6 hours to do this. It's pretty far. And as we're getting up, like hour 2, I'm already starting to question whether or not I can keep going. Like I am so tired and I can't get enough oxygen. Like you just
I was going to
feel.
say, how was your breathing?
Yeah, the breathing is I'm breathing hard. It's part of like how I'm focusing. Like I'm looking down at the trail and I'm taking steps and I'm regulating my breathing. And I'm trying to breathe like really
Mm.
measured so that I'm not getting panicked that I can't breathe, that I can't get enough air. Like even with all of the air that I'm bringing in my lungs, I'm not getting satisfied by that. And then at some point, maybe in the third hour, I'm starting to notice that I can't see right. Like, this is really weird. I can't see.
Mm.
Like, I can kind of see, but I can't focus on things. It's like
Those big puffy eyes, Ellie. Just like,
it was awful. So then I'm like, okay. So then I said something to Hari. I was like, I'm really having trouble seeing. And he was like, yes. I'm like, and my head is really starting, I'm feeling a lot of pressure on my eyeballs and like on my skull. And he was like, yes. So then you're like, okay, well, what a beautiful way. Like, I'm just It's like we're watching a baseball game. Like, oh, she's made a strike. Yes. Like, when I'm saying it, like, I'm checking with him. Like,
yeah,
is my head gonna
yeah,
explode? Or like, do I
yeah,
die now? Is this where we die?
yeah.
And he would just look and smile and say yes. And
Mm.
so then you're like, okay, that just continues to get worse. And so now I'm in the mindset of like, I have to get over the pass because I have to be able to get down. I could turn around and go down, but the Mahindra's on the other side. And so it's this constant battle where it's like, well, I wonder if I could get a Jeep on this side. Well, I wonder what would happen if I couldn't make it. And I wonder this and I wonder that. And then you're like, but then you just keep moving forward and keep moving forward. And then finally, we were taking a lot of breaks and just like, I have complete tunnel vision. It's hypoxia, right? Like I am well into hypoxia and there's not much to be done. You got to get up. You're so high now, it's better to push to go over than it is to go back. So you pass the point of no return, right? Where you're like, now I'm over halfway.
Mm.
It's going to take
So
me.
were you able to at this point
Mm.
enjoy the view? Because the image I have in my mind is,
Yeah,
kind of like you staring through these two toilet roll tubes
yeah,
that has become that your vision
yes,
has become at the path to
yep,
make sure that you don't tumble off,
right,
whilst coping with not getting enough air
yeah,
and maybe thinking that your eyeballs or some part of your head is going to explode.
yeah,
you know was there pleasure in this
yeah.
process? Were you able to
So
enjoy the view? Were you're like, gee, I'm really glad I came?
I think once I got into the real difficult part of the climb, I um I really enjoy pushing my body to limits. So I got into that part of the joy of like, I can't believe that my body can do this. Like I can't wait to get to the top and I know how that's going to feel. I know what the finish line, like the accomplishment, knowing that like I thought my body could do this, but it can actually do this, right? Like that is part of the joy that I actually have with physical challenges. The mental challenge was another thing where I was like, man, like this is really gonna push me into a place where it's gonna be difficult mentally, and I know that, and I will be able to like if I can overcome this, wow, like what an accomplishment there. And yes, there were beautiful moments. There were moments where like you would be in a cloud and you'd be coming up over a ridge, and then you look up and you're like, is that a monster? Like there's some huge figure and it's like you can't see because you're in a cloud, so it's like really fuzzy, plus I'm like blind.
And you
And I'm
thought, yeah.
but there's some gigantic creature and you're like and it's eerie and it like moves in a certain way and you're like, am I hallucinating? And then you get closer and you're like, oh, it's a yak. It's like this.
Well, I've just registered what a yak is. I was thinking yeti, but I've gotten to yak.
I
I had a
hope
moment.
it wasn't a Yeti. It could have been. I was
Yeah,
like half off
yeah.
my rocker, but and then you would follow this like it was beautiful. And the yak just like walks the same trail. So it's like walking in front of you and just keeps looking back like, "Ugh, go away, But and then the bottom of the yak, like the fur, hangs down like a curtain.
Yes.
So when it walks, like watching just the flow of this yak as it walked in front, I don't know what I found that really beautiful.
Mm,
The flowers. So you're well above the tree line and it's mostly dry and not a lot living, but then you would like look down and there'd be this beautiful, gorgeous, like bright red flower or a yellow, like gorgeous flower or a just like a glow in the dark midnight blue, just
ooh,
like bloop, would just be right there. And you look at it and be like, what the fuck? How is this living here?
mm,
So there were lots of those. There would be moments where I'd look down and there would be like 12 tiny little purple butterflies like dancing with each other.
mm,
So yes, there were, to me, it was like being able to be in that and still enjoy nature, like the power and the beauty and the stunningness of it. And to
mm,
look up and be like, I can't explain how tall these fucking mountains are. I could
mm,
never, there's no way to articulate. You can't take a picture of it. You can't capture it. You're just standing in it and you're like, I can't digest how big all of this is. They're so fucking big. So yeah.
I'm really loving this.
Yeah,
I feel like I'm tiny bit of a fly on the wall.
a butterfly on the path. Yeah.
Yeah, as you
Yeah.
remember it.
So we did make it.
Mm,
We went over and then down the other
mm,
side. It was a long
mm,
day. Um, and where the trust inside relationships starts to now become apparent is like my husband doesn't have what I would call the VO2 max, right? He doesn't have the endurance level that I have. He doesn't exercise in the same way. So he has not built up that level. I've always had a really big VO2 max. He doesn't. So as we started to climb in elevation, he was struggling a lot more than I was.
right.
And being able to trust him, like that he's going to be able to do it, or trust him that he's going to ask for what he needs, or trust him that like he's going to be able to take care of himself. Because there was a lot of times where I was like, do you want me to help? Do you need something to drink? Can I get you something? Like, and I was like having to really watch myself.
So you had that come to you, the
Yeah.
rescue,
Yeah.
check in, comfort,
It's
reassure,
almost
and you
like,
didn't.
yeah, if for inside relationship with my husband, where we are at right now in our marriage, it's more of
Mm,
frustration. It's more like, come on, Like, what the
Mm,
fuck do you need? Come on. So
mm,
that's usually how I've been approaching it. Like, yeah, it kind of looks like support, but mostly it looks like criticism and judgment.
mm.
And so,
Thanks for being honest.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
No, and I totally,
Mm,
yeah, it's not a great look and it's not a great way to be. So, like, when we're out there and he's really struggling and we're up at 4,500 feet and he's like breathing like that, I immediately go to frustration and judgment and then noticing myself
mm,
because the thought is, when I can really check in, the thought is that I'm going to have to fucking carry his shit.
mm,
That's not the case.
mm,
Maybe I'll carry his shit. Maybe I'll have to support him in some way. Maybe not. I don't know.
mm,
But like trusting that he
mm,
will figure it out himself without needing me to like
mm,
jump in, ask him the question, do you need a break from my high
mm,
horse, bitchy,
mm.
looking down on him?
So even up there, that imagining the future
Yeah.
was still available. Imagining, obviously
Yeah.
there wasn't much to imagine. You were going up, it was rocky, it was arid, there was, it was dry, there was nothing there, but but you were there with him. And so
Yeah.
you had, you know, your mind was still able to create that future story
Yeah.
about, I'm gonna have to carry stuff.
Yeah. And it's really, I don't know what the right word is, but it showed me why I get so shitty with him, because my assumption is if he can't do it, then I will have to do it, which is like the people pleasers tagline, right? So, like, what a great opportunity for me to start to check myself. There's 8 billion people on this planet. If he can't do it, maybe there's somebody other than me that could help him.
Mm,
And by the way, just because he can't do something or is struggling with something doesn't mean that I have to jump in and
mm.
pick up his load.
It's making the assumption that him not being able to do X, Y, or Z is a problem.
Right. Not only a problem, but a problem that I'm going to have to solve.
Yes. Yeah, I would say a problem and then. So it's identifying
Yes.
X as a problem, and then the next step seems to me is,
What the
oh, and
fuck am I going to
now
have to do
I
now?
need to do something about your problem.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes.
Mm.
What a huge epiphany inside of our 25-year marriage. Like, I didn't save him. I didn't rescue him. If he needed a break, he said so.
Mm.
And it worked. He made it over the pass.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've probably inserted the idea that there was an assumption that what he could or couldn't do, what he couldn't do in this case, was a problem. Um, but it sounds like they weren't problems, really.
No. And he was struggling. That may or may not be a problem. I don't know. For me, it's a problem because then I'm going to have to like pick up
Mm,
his load somehow. So when I realize like I'm going to trust Brian to take care of himself and get whatever it is that he needs to get over this damn mountain, like it was like I had to almost duct tape my mouth shut, right? Because it was like, Allison, don't. Whatever you're going to do, just don't do that. And thankfully I couldn't breathe. So it's like I'm not going to expend extra energy like yapping. So it actually forced me to think about something before I said it because oxygen is real, like scarce up there. So if you're going to say something, it's going to be fucking important. So you check yourself, right? So you're like, do I really need to say that? Doesn't think like I don't have to say that. So, um,
oh.
yeah, a totally different
Mm,
perspective now. And then the joy and freedom that is now able to be inside the marriage.
mm,
Like it's the end of the day. We're in this like little plywood room on really uncomfortable foam beds. There is a spider that is like real big in the bathroom thing, and I'm not going in there, and he's laughing, and we're giggling about how hard things were and like what was going through his mind. Like at one point, we got into our room and he sat down. He's like, I can't tell you the number of times I was disappointed today because like every time you come around a corner, you think you're going to see the village, and then it would be like another long, like you could see miles and miles of trail, and there's no village, and you're like, fuck. And then they put the Nepali Tibetan people, right? They put like physical rock gates when you're entering into another area, right? They've been called different things over the thousands of years. But so when you get to one of those, you're like, okay, so you go through the little gate and you're like, okay, so where's the village? And there was like one part of the trail where like there was a gate and there was no village. And then you're like, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Because like now the expectation is that there's going to be one and there's no village. And then there's another gate. And you're like, where's where's the village? So like it was just a bunch of disappointments because you're like, we're close. Oh, we're not close. Oh my God, there's no village. And then another gate, and you're like, oh, are we close now? There's still no. So
Yeah.
a day of
Dad, are we
disappointment.
there? That yeah, like children at the in the car. Are we there
Yeah,
yet? Are we
you
there
get off the
yet?
exit, but then you still got to
Mm,
drive a really
mm.
long way because that's not where the village is. So
So at the end of those days, joy and connection were available between you and Brian.
always. And
Mm,
that's where he said, this is starting to feel a lot like our marriage. It was like day 4. And he said, it's a little chaotic. It's really hard.
mm,
And yet we're able to like laugh. We're still able to find each other. We're working together. We're a good team. And we're able to like laugh at the hilarity
mm.
of life. Right. So,
That's lovely.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was, so now that we're back, so you go through all that, like what a bonding, what a beautiful experience. And I can already feel this is harder to experience trust or generate trust here in my life,
Mm,
in my home, in my, right?
mm,
In the place that I live, where I do know how to get shit done and I can control all the variables, right? All the variables. I feel the backslide. I'm like,
mm.
oh, I don't want to lose it.
So what are you like? What are you attributing that backslide to?
The logic is that that I have a way of being here. Like I have a pattern, and I've slipped really right back into, if I'm not careful, I will slip right back into the pattern where I don't think, where I don't question, where I don't challenge, I just do the thing. And
Mm,
also Brian is human, so he's going to slip into his pattern. And those two patterns where we were, which weren't great, we'll find ourselves back there again.
mm,
That's like fear-based, right? It's also real. Like we know humans have a pattern and it makes sense. Like that's efficient. Um, the other thing I attribute it to is there was a, when you're in the wild and there's no modern society anywhere. There's not a plane, a train, a car, air conditioner that kicks on. Like I'm trying to think of all the noises. There's no ringing. There's something that happens in my body that like my nervous system just settles. And then that happened day after day after day. And there's
mm,
a peace and a contentment and a slowing down. Like, so what I'm attributing some of this like trust difficulty now is that like my nervous system is now activated because I'm back in modern society and I hear a child crying, which I heard there, but not much. not out in the wild. I'm hearing a car alarm. I hear the train go by. Um, I hear honking. I hear cell phones. My neighbor's goddamn air conditioning unit, right?
Mm,
So like I think that that activates my nervous system just enough in the background that it's like a low static.
mm,
And I'm already noticing how like I'm a little bit more edgy. I have a little bit more stress. Now when my husband swallows really loud, it bothers me. It didn't bother me in Nepal. It was beautiful. I was like, this does not bother me, his loud goddamn swallowing, right? Like, when you're married, you're just like, oh,
yeah,
you're
yeah.
breathing. It's bothering me.
Yeah, stop breathing. Yeah, it's too
And
loud.
like I
Mm,
noticed it was actually Thursday this past week where I was like, he swallowed and did the noise. And I was like,
mm,
it bothered me. And that tells
mm,
me, I think, that my nervous system is activated. Not in a
mm,
bad way, but just because like I don't believe my human body is meant to live in I'm not evolved to handle the modern society. It's too much for me. And so what I'm trying to do is get out in nature more often into the quiet, into the
mm,
peace, into like getting away from all the noises.
mm.
Because for me, it activates my nervous system and then I get a little bit
You have a
irritable.
big pile of nature right outside,
I do.
like, just to
It's right
the
there. If I could show you the
left
sunrise,
of where you are. Yes.
it's beautiful.
Is that resourcing you,
Yeah.
sourcing
Yeah.
you?
It really matters to me that I now realize that this is a really great place for my nervous system to be. So what's interesting is that I will live my life and not go out and really be in it because I'll get busy and I have clients and then we have to do grocery shopping. The house needs to be cleaned and I got to drive to my mom's house
Mm,
and like at the end of a day like that, I've not sat and listened to. We have a peregrine falcon. Do you know
mm.
what that is? And
I imagine it's a very large bird.
it's a beautiful falcon that
Mm,
is like the most amazing fisher bird ever. Like every time I see this bird, she has a fish in her talons. Like every
mm,
time I'm like, girl,
mm,
get it. Like she's a really good little hunter. I think it's a she because she's gorgeous. And she has this beautiful call.
mm,
And so when I'm outside and I hear it, I'm like, oh, so, but if I get busy, I'm not outside listening and
mm.
hearing her, right? So it
So
takes,
it's available
yes, it's right there.
and you're not accessing it.
Right, right.
Mm,
Because life, because I don't have an intention, because I don't have a routine, because I don't. So now every morning I am outside. I come home from the gym and I jog very slowly. Jog is a very liberal word for what I'm doing, more of
mm,
a waddle. The
mm,
dogs for 20 minutes as the sun is coming up over the lake. I don't listen to my phone, nothing is with me. It's just me and the dogs. And
mm,
I do that every morning and I'm really feeling resourced by that.
mm.
And then every
Is
night
that a new habit?
yeah, I used to
Mm,
do it and then I get away from it. So right
mm,
now it's really doing it with a lot of intention,
mm,
listening to nature, being aware of this beautiful place that I live and all of that,
mm.
and connecting with my dogs, which brings me lots of joy. So,
So to that kind of like point, you've said habit, you've
yeah,
kind
yeah.
of slipped back into the habit of I know how this all works. So my words, not yours, but some level of autopilot,
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's a great word.
just back into the thing, the
Mm-hmm.
flow of life.
Right.
So, and I think you've said it's harder here
Yes.
to
The training wheels
practice.
are off.
Yes. So that was a great place to practice because to a large degree there was no other option.
Right.
How now
Yeah.
do you keep generating
Yeah.
generating from trust,
Mm-hmm.
be trust,
Mm-hmm. Well,
be trusting?
it's going to take practice. That's how I learn things. So, So each morning I am doing a daily clearing and then I'm choosing trust every day. So it's like, can I keep this in the forefront of my mind? The other practice is I am trying to slow things down. Um, I'm also practicing like my decision making inside of the business, anyways, just really slowing that down, taking 24 hours to give an answer, really checking with myself. So those are some of the practices that I'm now putting in place. When it comes to my relationship with my husband, the practice is like us being able to connect. For me, I want us to be able to connect every day outside. So that might be a walk, that might be sitting on the dock, although we're missing a bunch of stuff. We had a huge storm. We were gone. We lost the end of our dock, got taken out by the waves. So I have to rebuild that. But it'll be more like intentional time outside of like all of the modern society stuff, the
Mm,
worrying and the beeping and the blinking and all of the things that for me, I don't know about him, but for me, like it all just it just activates
mm.
my nervous system and has me at like a low hum.
And did you know that before?
I've always felt that like the modern world is too much for me. I can't really tolerate cities for very long. I've always known that about myself. They always were just like too much.
Mm,
I don't, I just don't enjoy my time there. It's like a lot of noise and a lot of input. And the older I get, the more I'm really have become aware of that. Um, and I've always been really drawn to like more rural areas. That's why I live in a rural area. Like, I don't know why I
mm,
picked this. I get it now. Because like
mm,
there's a part of me that really feels settled when I'm in a place where I can really recharge my batteries.
mm,
But as I get older and I start to learn more about like the neuroscience of how our bodies work and how the impacts of the modern world, the impacts of these fucking things, right? Like it
mm,
really is starting to help me to understand more about what is it that I need so that
mm,
I'm not at a constant level of chronic stress over time. How do I
mm.
recharge?
With that trust thing, Ali,
Mm,
you know, we have these habits. So it's, I think what I want to say is it's all illusion.
yeah.
Me thinking that I have control over what's going on here
Yeah.
is an illusion.
Yes. Yes.
Um, and so in Nepal, I realize I wasn't there, but in Nepal, it's easy
Yeah.
for me or you or a human to practice.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything is so obviously unfamiliar.
Yeah.
It's true that it's unfamiliar.
Yeah.
It's true that I don't know what's happening here.
Yeah.
That feels very true. I think it's probably true here right now in the room that I know, in the house and the town that I know, in the country that I know,
Yeah.
in the life that I know.
Yeah.
I think it's also true
Great distinction. Yes.
that I don't
Absolutely.
actually know. I think
Yeah.
I've I've been trained and I've picked that up. I'm, gobbling that information up like, yeah, I
Yes.
can control what's happening. I know
Yep.
what's going on here. I know how everything works. And
Yeah.
it gives me a sense of security.
Yeah.
Um, but I think it's not real.
True.
I'm kind
Yeah.
of I don't have a conclusion or a powerful ending to that. Just like, is it really that different here? Or do we just think
Make
it's
it up in our
different
minds.
here? Yes, make it up in our
Such a
minds that it's different.
great, I love that. And I put down that like we trick ourselves into thinking that when things are familiar that we have control. And it's bullshit.
Yeah,
I
so
could get hit on the
how,
highway just as easily as I could run off the cliff in Nepal, right? Like it's actually more likely that I would. get in a wreck here.
And yet in your mind, and it could be my mind, anybody's mind,
Yeah.
you've made them different.
Yes. Because I know I'm familiar. I know how to predict the future because I have a lot of experiences that help me to think that I know what will happen. And so it's interesting. So the place to practice then here is to like notice that I don't know what's going to happen with my husband. I don't know what's going to happen with my daughter, my son. I don't really know what's going to happen with the business. I don't know. I practicing trust here is more like it's almost like I have to manufacture uncertainty because I'm so convinced that I know.
Yes, which is so ironic, isn't it? Because
I feel like I just turned inside out.
Yeah, you're having to manufacture something on top of your thinking.
Yeah.
And both of those are made up because the truth underneath is that you don't know. And I'm thinking when I came back from Angola, my life was different here.
Yeah.
How it had been before I went.
Yes.
And so it felt, or I felt like I was still flying by the seat of my pants, even though I was back in my own country.
Yeah, where it's familiar.
Where everything in theory was familiar, but I was not having the familiar experience because my husband wasn't here with me. I didn't have the job I had before. I didn't have a car. I didn't have
and
any
you had
furniture.
Kids at that point, right?
Yeah. I didn't have any furniture. We were sitting on the floor, eating our dinner on the floor. So everything, even though I was back where I knew everything, actually, I felt I may just as well have been in Mars. I was gobsmacked and so appreciative that I could turn the tap off on and clean water came out.
Yes.
And it was weird because I'd only been away for 8 or 9 months, but I came back. But all of the interesting point about that is it came into my mind when you were speaking, like, but I came back to the familiar place and I did not feel like I knew how to be. Like I didn't know how to be. I didn't know anything because I didn't have any of the things I normally had that were my anchors, that held me in place, my tent pegs that held me in place and stopped me flying away. I knew I was securely anchored. I didn't have those. So yes, that's interesting. Your thought process of thinking you need to manufacture uncertainty. I don't know that you do because it's truly there
already.
And
that's where I get to like, this may be where we wrap the thing because I don't know yet how to distinguish between trust and acceptance. What is the difference? I can, when I'm in a good place, I can accept that I don't know things intellectually, right? Maybe that's the distinction, is that acceptance is an intellectual exercise and trust is like an embodied experience. I can argue inside I can do the mental gymnastics that like, I can't control anything. It's an illusion. Like I can do that game. But trust is like, oh no, I trust that whatever will happen will be exactly how it's supposed to go.
And it will be okay.
Well, I don't know about that. I just know that it will be. It's almost like the end of a completion where you're like, it went exactly the way it was supposed to go. That's the trust, is that it is going exactly the way it's supposed to be going, and it will go exactly the way it's supposed to go. So maybe trust is like a future. Completion is about past.
Before we wrap up, I'm doing that positive intelligence course at the moment. And he tells a story about a farmer. Do you remember the story?
Keep going.
About a farmer who has a
Oh, the
stallion.
son. Oh, okay,
Yes,
a
so he has
horse.
a stallion, and he takes the stallion to market, and it's, it's like, oh my God, or to a race, and it wins the race. Everyone's like, oh my God. His neighbors come and say, oh my God, your horse won the prize. That's
Yeah.
incredible. And he
Yes.
says, who knows what is good and what is bad?
Yeah.
And then, the loads of, I think the stallion runs away, and his
Yeah.
neighbors come and say, oh my God, I'm so sorry, that's really awful. And he says, who knows what is good or bad? The stallion comes back, finds its way home with loads of mares in tow, and they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. Your stallions come back and brought all these beautiful female horses, and
Hmm.
they've all come back to your ranch. And he says, who knows what is good and bad? And he goes on, and his
Yeah.
son breaks his leg, and they're,
That's what I remember.
and then the army come to
Yes.
recruit people, and his son can't go because he has a broken leg. um, and it goes on and on and on. And he's saying, throughout the story, the farmer is saying, who knows what is
Right.
good and what is bad?
Yep.
And I listened to that a few times, and as you've just said, I got it. I got the concept, and I understood it
Hmm.
intellectually. And then I listened to it. It came up again when he was talking in one of his, recordings on the program, and I kind of went, oh, okay. So we don't know what is good and what is bad. And I had a moment of like, it went in,
Yeah.
when it's kind of like it zaps you. Um, has probably flown away again, and I'm back in the habitual state of
Sure.
thinking I know what is good and what is bad. But somehow that story feels connected to
It
your
totally is.
your acceptance thing and trust, like maybe more the trust thing, but maybe both. I don't know. Like, like I don't know whether this is good or bad.
Yeah.
It,
And
it
what a
just is what
relief
it is.
it is to not have to judge that anymore.
Mm,
So, like, if our daughter, a great example is our daughter is struggling, and people will say, oh gosh, that must be so terrible. The assumption is that must be so hard for you as a mother. And
mm,
like going back to like trusting that our daughter is exactly where she's supposed to be in
mm,
her life. This is her journey. This is part, like, if I were to know the future, this is where she is on the map.
mm.
It is neither good nor bad. It just is.
It just is. Yes, it just is. And trust is, um Adam, told us a story which I don't even know why I'm bringing up, because I don't remember it properly, but it was something about, you were there. It was something about going out over a lake, a frozen lake, and something about,
Oh,
how do we know what trust is? And it's trust isn't about knowing,
yeah.
not about knowing. It is about being in the uncertainty and not knowing, who knows, not knowing whether it is good or bad.
Well, and what you said before is we don't know shit.
Mm,
So like I have clients that are like, well, I've got savings, for example, like I have a financial, like I have a 401k, I have all these things, I have all these savings. And you're like, uh-huh, you think like, so now you're secure, right? And you're not, because
mm,
anything could happen. Anything could take that away. Your one cancer diagnosis, or your one house being burned down, or your one, child being really sick with something. Like, we don't know. And there is no like, we like to manufacture certainty because we're human, and that's fine. And it doesn't allow I think what I'm learning is it doesn't allow me to be with trust.
mm,
And it also isn't because then the flip side is like, well, so then do you just not lock your doors and give shit away to all the people and let anybody just do whatever? And it's like, no, that's not trust either. It's not trusting that all the humans on the planet will always have, but it is like trusting yourself. Like when I met Mr. Hari,
mm,
I trusted my instinct with him. My instinct
mm,
was he's an okay dude,
mm.
but I didn't really know.
No, no, you didn't know, and that could have gone one of many ways. It went the
Sure.
way it went.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, it went the way
So
it went.
I love where we've landed because um, I think the practice of trust is to just look at things and like I know I can't not judge things, right? Like that's not possible. My brain will do it before I can stop it. So it's letting it go.
Mm,
So if I think my daughter's struggling, that's a judgment.
mm,
Can't prove that she's struggling. There's no like empirical data that I can collect. I can tell a story, I can point to things and say, yeah, this proves, but at the end of the day, it's an interpretation. Maybe she's
mm,
struggling, maybe she's not. It's trusting that she's exactly where she is. Not even needs to be. That's just where she is. She is
mm.
there. She is.
Yes,
That's
it
it.
is what it is, which is a phrase
Yeah.
that lots of people hate, but
Right.
it is what it is, and who knows whether it's good or bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
That's why that story is so
mm,
powerful because we
yes,
all do the thing. We're like, oh, it was
yes,
good. Oh, it was bad. Oh, no, actually, it was
yes,
good.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And our thinking creates our feelings and is
So a
the
broken leg is
director.
a bad thing. Of course it is.
Yes, the
No,
the
it's not.
thinking is then, our actions come from our thinking, and the world is that we live in is created from our thinking and our
Yep.
actions, which goes back round to our thinking and
Yeah.
reinforces our thinking, and we don't know.
At the end of the day, we've
Mm,
got no control and we don't know shit.
mm.
There. And on that bright note,
Yay!
should we
Bye,
call it a wrap?
Tracy. Yes, let's.
Yes.
Thank you for listening, Tracy. Yeah, we love you
All right,
so
everybody, have a
much.
lovely, lovely what? A day, a week. And just don't forget, you don't know shit and
Yeah,
you can't
nothing.
control anything. Love
On that note,
us.
ciao.
Okay.